Okay, hello all you crazy people out there. My name is Michael. I like wizards and dragons and making games, and welcome to Microsoft Excel. Today we're going to be doing that thing that I've been putting off for how many weeks now, and that is going to be game balance. So let me back up a little bit. Over the past year or so, I've been working on a tower defense game at Game Maker Studio 2.3 in 3D. Because it's fun and because it seemed like the sort of fun thing that would be fun, I need to think of some new adjectives to make a video series on in terms of let's make a game. And here we are. So it has not been balanced at all right now. If these numbers have any meaning to you, this is these are the stats of the enemies, and these down here are the stats of the towers. And somewhere down here, this is the stats of each wave that's going to be flowing in soon. We can do things such as send foes in and set them on fire and shoot things at them. And if you save up enough money, you can build other towers and that do other things and damage them in other ways and that sort of exciting thing. And let's see, I have not put any thought into balance yet. This is very much not a balanced game. Hopefully by the end of this video, we will be a little bit more balanced. I'm not intending to do it perfectly. I don't want this to be like a 100% perfectly balanced game because that would involve staring at spreadsheets for hours and hours and hours on end. And I don't think anybody wants to see a video of me doing that. So we're just going to make something that's decently good. Perhaps on my own time I'll smooth it out a little bit more, but I do want to do the bulk of this on recording. So I did write down some notes on how I'm about to do this. I didn't write down any exact numbers, but I did write down some notes on how I want to do this. And I've decided that for the purposes of this game, I'm going to define difficulty as, making sure I'm looking at the right page on my notes, the total amount of HP in a wave. So that would be the number of foes times each foe's HP, and each foe's HP in turn would be defined by the level of the foe times its base HP. So this first wave, for example, there are going to be 8 ants at level what? I think level 1. At level 1, the ants have 5 base HP. So 8 times 1 times 5 is 40. After that, pillbugs, 8 pillbugs level 1. Each pillbug has 10 HP, but it moves at half the speed. I should have factored that into the number for the ants as well. But each pillbug has twice as much HP, half the speed, so I would rate those two waves at about the same difficulty level. And so on down the line. So I'm going to be whipping out Microsoft Excel. If you don't want to use a Microsoft Office product, you can do this in pretty much any spreadsheet program or just on like graph paper if you want. Let me real quick go through and count up these values for each of these things. So I'm going to just write a couple columns here. Foe type. There's going to be the level, base HP, count, and speed. And essentially these numbers are going to be just done a little bit of math on and multiplied together. Speed is also affected by level. I mean, speed is not affected by level, rather. I believe I was looking at that earlier, and I don't believe entity foe. I don't believe speed is affected by level. And it does not look like it is. Yeah, it's just that on itself. Times any modification, such as being slowed down by flypaper or something. All right, there are how many waves? There's, I want to say, about 12 waves. Let me just run through these real quick. Okay, so the difficulty rating is more or less just each of these values multiplied together. And if I were to plot this, and I do not remember off the top of my head how to use the charting tools in Microsoft Excel, but if you were to plot these, you would see some sort of curve or another. Which overall gets bigger as you progress through the waves. God, how do you find the chart tools? I think it's insert. And I would like select this range, and I want a line graph. Not a bar graph. Is this a line graph? That's the line graph. All right, that actually is what I was looking for. Cool. So maybe I do remember how to use Microsoft Excel. If you're using Google Docs or Apache OpenOffice calculator table or whatever, it would be more or less similar. But we are trying to chart the progression of this game. as it goes on. So waves 5 and 8, those are the grasshopper levels. Those are sort of what I've designated in my head as boss levels. So they should have a bit of a difficulty spike after that, and perhaps in wave 6 it drops down a little bit because you want it to be a little easier. Oh, is it wave 6 that's the? Oh no, okay. This is just an off by 1. Let me insert to the left wave number, and we can use the magic interpolation drag handle and drag that down. And yes, indeed, wave 5 is the grasshopper, wave 8 is the grasshopper. So balancing games is a bit of an ordeal because already this is a fairly simple game. We already have a number of variables at play that affect the difficulty. I'm not even going to talk about towers yet. I'm going to deal with towers after I deal with foes. That may or may not work out as well in practice as it's going to work out in my head, but first I want to make sure that the difficulty curve of the foes goes up more or less gradually, or at least in a quadratic curve rather than whatever the hell this is, because this is a little bit of an extreme jump from wave 6 to 7, which will assuredly cause issues for the player if they're not adequately well prepared. And there's a couple ways to do this. I can modify any of these values. So the base HP for each foe, and the level, and the speed rather. The base HP and the speed are part of the foe's base stats. I am a little reluctant to change those. It is, of course, an option. I could just give all ants everywhere an extra base HP and make them 20% tougher. Also, before I forget, I wrote down in the side over here notes for the gnats. The gnats, if you recall, have a shield, so they will always take 1 HP. They will always take 1 hit before they start taking damage. And that doesn't factor into damage calculation, but it does ensure that each gnat will take at least 2 hits to go down, rather than 1. And that is not reflected on this graph over here, so this point down here is perhaps a little bit lower than it maybe should be. So maybe it's not fair to say the difficulty completely jumps off a cliff after the grasshopper level. A couple caveats here. One is that this is not a perfect representation of how difficult something's going to be. It is probably a fair assessment that, especially based on the tower type, if you have a lot of foes with little HP that are moving slow, they're going to be a lot easier to take down than a few foes with a lot of HP, such as the grasshoppers. On the principle that if you can one-hit KO 1 aphid with any given tower, you can one-hit KO an arbitrarily large number of them. So it doesn't really do anything to the difficulty to just increase the volume that come through. So with that said, each wave, if you want to individually control the calculated difficulty for each wave, you would affect both the level and the count. And as I just sort of implied, increasing the count doesn't really do anything after a certain point. You know, let me, I can edit this chart title, can't I? Anyway, so the primary tool for modulating difficulty is probably going to be the level. So, for example, without changing anything else, if I were to cut the level of the wave 8 grasshoppers down from 8 to like 5 or so, that is going to still be a sharp jump from here to here, but it's not going to be as utterly insanely steep as it was before. Likewise, in wave 7, those are level 3 grasshoppers, level 3 aphids, and there are 60 of them. As I used in my example, as I said in my example, increasing the count probably won't make the game much more difficult because they're all very weak and they could all just be probably more or less one-shotted by whatever you've got built by that point. So instead, let's bump the level up to say 4, and that's still not quite as steep as I'd like. Maybe something more like that would be better. And then there's the gnats. The gnats will not ever be one-shotted because they do have that one shield. They only have 1 base HP as it is, so increasing their level realistically won't do much because if your towers are probably going to be doing more than 3 HP, more than the 3 calculated HP per shot, so that probably won't really do much. That just means that once you take away their shield, they'll still go down in 1 hit, so they'll still take 2 shots total to take down. This is a case where increasing the number of enemies might be more useful in terms of modulating difficulty. So I'll bump that up to let's say 30, 35, 40. I'll do 40. Let's go big or go home. And just see how this feels. So I have not touched the base stats. I have only touched the levels and the foe counts, the foe quantities. So let me put those back in the game and just see what it and just play through it to see what it feels like for 5 minutes. Right now, all these values are hard-coded into the game. Later on, I'll probably write these to files and load them from files, but for now, while I'm just testing things to get the basics done, hard-coding them isn't the end of the world. I hesitate to say the word mod support because that's always the first question that comes up when people talk about loading data from files. My opinion on game mods, especially for indie games, is that the data is there in the game's program files and you can do whatever you want to do with it, but I'm not going to go out of my way to support that or anything. So just give me a minute. Where was I? All right, there we go. This is what the data looks like. By the way, and this is just sort of a thing that I am obligated to bring up. Usually the conventional wisdom when it comes to tweaking values in the game for balance is to either cut something in half or double it. Don't bother increasing it by like 10%. If you're unsure about a value in the game, cut it in half or double it and see what it feels like and see if it feels better or worse than you started with. And then once you get reasonably close to how you want it to feel, or how you want the difficulty to feel like, that's when you can start adjusting it by like 10% in any given direction. But yeah, increasing the foe count from like 20 to 25 or whatever I did the first time probably won't really do much in terms of changing how the game feels if it's as far off as I thought it was. Whereas cutting the grasshopper level from 8 down to 5, that's almost a reduction by half. But actually, you know what? Let's cut it exactly in half. Just because this curve still is a little bit steep. And no, I will worry about saving this document later. Just because that curve is still a little bit steep and this is probably better. So let's do this. Some other comments. There's still some features that have yet to be added. I do want to do tower upgrades. I do have actually let me start with the pebble shooter. I do have a menu for like upgrading towers. It doesn't do anything yet. It pops up a message that says please do this later. Obviously, if you do that, the towers will get stronger and their damage output will go up. I have also not balanced towers at all, as I sort of waved my hands at the beginning. And that is something that I am more or less fine with. Some of the towers are definitely better than others. The pebble shooter, as I've called it, is basically just the generic attacky tower. And it doesn't actually really do that much. You can see it's not doing a lot of damage to any of these things. It is very weak. It could probably use a buff, and that is indeed something else that has an effect on how difficult a video game is, particularly of the tower defense kind. In particular, and I know I've brought this up before, but the towers that can, I don't have enough money yet. The towers that can do damage to crowds tend to be stronger. So I will probably want to nerf those. The one that usually comes up in that discussion when I comment on it is this here poison tower, because it can just damage an arbitrarily large number of things. Anything that walks through it, really. So if you have a crowd of like 50 grasshoppers, they'll all be taking the same amount of poison damage, and its upper bounds for DPS is kind of unbounded, which is not really good for balance. There's a couple things that could be done about that. I could nerf it in various ways, or I could actually not allow these clouds of bug spray to damage anything and everything that walks through it. That's another way. Anyway, this is wave. I should probably write the wave counter on the UI or something up here. But this is wave 5. This is the first grasshopper boss level. The other thing that can happen is I can send in waves early, which generally makes the game harder, because you now have more enemies on the screen that you need to contend with at the same time. Oftentimes, tower defense games that allow you to do that would basically give you some sort of reward for doing that, so either money or something else. Something got through. That's certainly something to think about. Am I actually going to be able to take you down before you? Nope. You have not been taken down. I leaked another one. I do have a lot of money, though. I haven't really been using it. The other thing that I have mentioned occasionally is, oh god, what was it? I knew what I wanted to say when I started saying that sentence, and by the time I got to the end, I couldn't remember what it was. Is that the end of the game? That certainly felt more balanced. It didn't feel like I got through the first 6 waves or whatever, and then, oh my god, here come the last grasshoppers, and I can't do anything to them, as it did the other times. I don't really think the waves 6 and 7 felt all that much more difficult. Like I said, I guess I could increase the nat count and the aphid level or something. Keep it in control less reflexively, and it's not something I want to do now. That might be a little high. The other thing I want to do to test balance is do it without building any poison towers, because the poison towers, as I've stated, are rather on the overpowered side, and much like trying to like find performance bottlenecks on a computer that has like an i9 and a 3080 for its processors, trying to beat the game with weaker towers is probably a better way to find what waves are unbalanced. So 60 nats, aphids are going to be level 60, and I'm going to do this without building any poison towers. I may also do this without building any bird towers, since those can also slice through enemies pretty well, but we'll start with this. The magnifying glass. This is a favorite of mine. I'm glad someone suggested this in the YouTube comments a while ago. I had fun designing it, implementing it, and now using it. And it's an interesting idea. It's not just shoot damage at enemies. It's continuous damage over time as long as they're in range. I am not quite killing anything. Like I'm barely just not taking anything out. It did like 85% to all those, and I think all of them got through. Shame. And again, also tower defense strategy generally. The crossroads sections. Like where 2 paths overlap, those are very good to build stuff on, because you get to hit enemies twice with the same tower, and as well as when they come close like this but don't overlap. All right, this is really not going very well. So I took away the bird tower and the poison tower, and this is suddenly actually quite difficult again. All right, I was afraid when I was designing it. At least this is what I remember. But I was afraid when I was designing it, I died, that the magnifying glass tower would be a little bit overpowered. But it actually feels rather underpowered right now, so I might have overdone it a little bit. Let's see. Can I just line these up to make it easier to read what numbers are where? So likewise, the towers. I'm going to at least attempt to use Microsoft Excel to some effect here. Towers, I did not formally write down any equations in my notebook here for towers, but I do know generally what I want to do. I want each of the towers to have approximately the same DPS. For those of you who are not familiar with the video game terminology, that's just damage per second, so how much damage you can do at a time. And that is a function of the actual base damage and the fire rate. The range kind of also comes into play, because if you have more range, you can spend more time. You can spend more seconds damaging things. So I will also bring that into the equation. And cost. Cost is another one. Cost is fairly important. I think when I run these numbers, I am going to adjust the DPS by cost, by tower cost. And that should scale up less expensive towers like the Pebble Shooter versus more expensive towers like pretty much everything that isn't the Pebble Shooter. So let me just do this. What do I even call the product of this? Just like goodness?
Hey.
Something like that. Let's go with that. I'll also leave a note section, because again, some of these towers do special things. Such as the fire towers doing residual damage with burn, flypaper not actually doing any damage at all, but making it easier for other towers to hit it, and poison just being poison. That definitely needs a nerf. Let me enter these numbers. Okay, this is messier. I'm using the area of the tower's range rather than just the radius value, because the thing that really determines how much space you have to hit enemies with when it comes to towers is the area, which is the pi r squared, so range times pi, which is why this up here is a little bit ugly. See, did I accidentally make a change to that when I didn't mean to? Nope. Okay. So adjusted for cost, the Pebble Shooter is actually pretty good because it costs significantly less than everything else. I probably should have taken that into account when I was thinking of this, when I was talking earlier. The Fire Tower is fairly expensive and doesn't do a lot of base damage, even though it does burn things for 4 points later on. That definitely, I did notice this when I was playing it, but the 4 points of burn and also even poison damage really does kind of become insignificant later on as things get stronger and stronger and have more HP. At the beginning, 4 points of damage is like almost all the HP that an ant has, but towards the end, if you have, what was this, a level 4 grasshopper with 20 base HP, that's 80 HP total. That's gonna be 1/20th of your total HP burn. So that's really not very much. I may revisit burn to make it a fixed percentage, or at least something that comes close to scaling at higher levels. Maybe I'll use like a square root function or a logarithm function instead to make it climb but slowly at higher levels. But it's worth thinking about. In any case, its fire rate is half of the Pebble Shooter. Its range is the same, its damage is the same, and it costs 4 times more. So its goodness value is going to be much less. The magnifying glass is, I guess I kind of said this without really going too far into why. The magnifying glass doesn't feel that great, and indeed no, don't edit the formula. It does do continuous damage, which is a bit of an appeal because it doesn't really have a cooldown. I just assigned its fire rate to be 1 because if I made it 0 like is in the data, its value would have come out to be 0. This is per second anyway. I believe its damage value is. That's how the math works. So one is good enough. So I think I will actually leave the Pebble Shooter alone. I may, if I halve the cost of the Fire Tower, or more than half it. Let's make the Fire Tower cost 15 instead of 20. That's going to at least make this value about 1, which is about where the magnifying glass is. I would like to make this a little stronger. Again, the Fire Tower does get a little bit of bonus damage from the burn effect, but the magnifying glass gets no such thing. I guess it would also make sense to inflict a burn status with the magnifying glass because it's focusing energy into a single point and it's making it very hot, but I'm not going to try and science it too hard. I'm going to leave this thing's cost where it is, but let's increase the damage from 2 per second to like 4 per second. Alright, let's even go a little bigger than that. 5 per second. 50 damage per second would just be completely game over for anything that walks by, but whatever. Bug spray and fly paper. I'm going to do these separately. I'm not going to look at the math for them. The fly paper I'm more or less happy with, I think, with its values. And bug spray just needs to be completely like mechanically nerfed and not just having the numbers adjusted. And the bird tower is, I'm okay with this being more expensive if it also does more damage. If I double that to 80 and then increase the range to like, no, range would be weird visually because the things that damage it are literally the birds flying around the nest, but make the damage go up as well. Alright, double the cost, double the DPS. Or damage per shot or whatever. So, I'll start with that. Again, give me a moment to plug these numbers back in. I didn't change any fire rates. I don't think I changed any ranges, actually, either. Damage, magnifying glass went up by a lot. Bird tower went up by also a lot. Cost of bird tower went up. And the cost of fire tower went down. That was not quite as many adjustments as I made to the enemies. And we'll see what... No, wait. Before I run that... because I'm probably going to forget anyway. Let me go into... Tower... and spray. Would it be in here? No, this controls the shooting. It would be in bullet spray. So I'm just going to make the spray clouds, instead of a lifetime value, well, they can be a lifetime value also, but I will also give them something similar to the flypaper, and that's going to be hits remaining. And I guess we'll also give it a parent so that it can work on a similar principle. We are going to pass the parent to the constructor, and the way that in the update, all right, so when it delivers a hit, when it delivers a bullet data on hit to the foe, it decrements the hit counter, and this is going to be important because if it doesn't check to see if the foe that walks through it is already poisoned, it will just poison them on like 3 individual frames, 3 individual updates, and then expire or whatever I set it to, and that's obviously not good. So if something's already poisoned, it won't count towards making the cloud expire. And if hits remaining is less than or equal to 0, so if we run out of hits, then we're going to just destroy ourselves. And since they time out anyway, there really isn't a paper count or anything like that, so maybe I can get away with not using them, not having a reference to the parent tower. The flypaper, when it expires, it triggers a new one to spawn somewhere from the flypaper tower, from its parent tower, but the bug sprayer just does it automatically. All right, so we'll try this, and let me run the game. And let's see, this recording has been going on for a little while, so assuming that this is at least decently good, if not, like I said earlier, if not perfect, I will call after this. I can build like several of these. If I build like maybe not 4 of them, but 3 of them and a couple fire towers, I can do that. This should be much easier than it was before, I think, since I basically buffed everything. At least for these in different ways. You were pretty useful. I am going to save my money for building a bird nest. And I kind of wish I had a speed up button. I ordinarily don't like speed up buttons in games, but when it comes to real-time strategy games, it does help. When it comes to the simulation, for parts of the simulation that are maybe not... I love spawning 2 waves at once because I hit the spacebar at the same time as the next one comes in. For real-time strategy games like this, it can be useful to sort of view the strategy from a macro level, and more especially when it comes to testing games. But let's see. How many... I should probably put the cost of each tower on each of these things. I need 80 gold for this, right? And I died. Okay, well... that was probably at least partially on me because I spawned 2 waves at once. Let me try that again. Same strategy, but not spawning multiple waves on top of each other. Okay, so I survived that one that I had all kinds of trouble with. I still suspect I'm gonna have trouble with these things. I still do not have enough money to build a bird nest tower, and indeed, a lot of things are leaking, which is unfortunate. So I think I'm gonna... yeah, that's game over. All right. Another comment when it comes to the bird nest towers is I have a feeling these are going to specifically sort of specialize in shredding boss levels because they do a lot of damage, but they don't do it consistently. Their fire rate is half of like the default. It's 0.5, which I believe is 1 shot every 2 seconds. And they do a ton of damage, but they do it slowly. And on top of that, they only do it when the enemy is actually physically in contact with the bird as it orbits the nest, which is probably better for things when there's going to be like 3 or 4 grasshoppers that are very strong and have a lot of HP. More so than when you have 50 aphids that only have 1 HP, but there's a million of them. All right, I was not satisfied by that 100%. That could be because I did have a lot of money that I wasn't spending because I was trying to save up for the bird nest tower and never got there. It could be because the towers at the bottom of this, at the top of the spreadsheet, on the cheap end of the spreadsheet, are still not quite as strong as I'd like them to be.
Hey.
I do not have any relation between the goodness of a tower and the difficulty of a wave. There is no relationship whatsoever between these two numbers. Theoretically, doing a little bit of math and like dividing the wave difficulty by the goodness of the towers available, or the max goodness of the towers available, given how much money you're going to have at the end of every wave, might produce an answer that would be somewhat interesting, but that probably would be more trouble than it's worth, and still not give me like the answer I'm really looking for. All right, let me build a couple of those. I don't want to upgrade or sell anything, thank you. I did want to test out the magnifying glass again. I like to put that one in like one of these two corners here. I need 40. I need a couple more money before I can do that. The other thing when it comes to speed up buttons, by the way, is tower defense in particular. Just if you have a couple waves that you think you should be good against and you don't want to have to sit there waiting for them to pass, you do often kind of wish that you had such a thing. Speed up buttons are fairly common in tower defense games, probably for that reason. I haven't played as many other real-time strategy games, so I don't know if that would be as common in those as well. And this thing is just annihilating the aphids as they walk through. That was no problem at all. I don't think any of them even got past there. Let's see how it does against some of the stronger things. All right, you're gonna get through. I'm not gonna be able to. I don't think I'm gonna be able to do enough damage to you to finish you off before you. Yeah, you just barely. You were bumped off, but 3 of you got through. I can now build not one of those, but I can now build a bird nest, and we'll see how those make out when the next boss comes through. All right. Flypaper dispenser. The other thing that probably would help would be to build one of these in this crossroads, so that the magnifying glass has more time to focus its continuous damage on every given thing. Since the flypaper is stuck to the ground, which logically makes sense to make flying bugs immune to the effects. All right, wow, that's really helping. Is that it? There's still more waves. Okay, again, I spawned it in pretty much just as the next one was due to start. Yeah, these birds are definitely just... The dog just bonked her head on the door. These birds are definitely just completely ruining the days of these grasshoppers. So that might be a little bit overpowered still. Maybe decrease the damage a little bit as far as those go. Okay, so a couple observations, the primary one being that the bug spur tower did not completely annihilate absolutely everything that walked through, which is good, so I think I'll be leaving that as it is. Flypaper dispenser is really good. I think I should probably, like, this is intangible, I can't see the math or anything, but I should probably increase the cost of it a little bit. Let's do 50%. Let's make it 60. I did say I kind of wanted to nerf the bird nest. Let's make it 8. And all right, in the future, and I don't want to do this, I don't want to make this video drag on too long, so I'm probably going to end it off here. But this is a good start, I think. I wasn't sure how this video was going to go. I tried recording it once before, and I had no plan, so I decided to just stop and come back with some notes in this notebook full of math. I will close this. I will update the values that I changed. What were they? They were the damage on the bird nest, so that's going to be 8. They were the cost on the flypaper, so that's going to be 60. I didn't really change any code. I only changed numbers. Well, I guess I did change code. I changed the code for the poison gas bullets. Bugs spray bullets can only hit a certain number of foes. Like I said, I'm still thinking of having the damage from fire and poison scale up, so that once like a level 10 something walks in, it's not going to be completely impervious to passive damage. adjusted some numbers related to difficulty. I think this is going to be 0.32. This is going to be the 0.32 release in this GitHub repository. I think I'm going to... I've been marking the other ones as pre-releases, as in, like, this is still work in progress for obvious reasons. I might just build an executable and mark it as something that isn't a pre-release and let people actually play it and see how it feels. We might be getting to that stage. I will decide that between when I go to edit this video and now. Let's see, what else? Next week, I do want to do some of the fun things. I do want to do a speed up button. I want to have a wave timer so that I can actually see how far off the next wave is, and probably something like what sort of enemies it contains too, just for a little bit of help. I do want to make the UI a little nicer, so we'll do that. So, until then, my name is Michael. This has been Let's Make a Tower Defense Game in Game Maker Studio 2. I hope you all found that interesting, and I will see you all later. Oh, you know what? I've got to include this also. Can I undo that? Too late. It's already pushed to GitHub. I will include this. It's going to be an Excel document, but you should be able to just open it with your spreadsheet editor of choice, up to and including Google Sheets. Special thanks to Kiara Elizabeth, Connor, David Key, Edward Holt, Emily Koyo, Posho, Tusk, and Zenith for supporting these videos. If you want your name in the credits or to hear yourself shouted out at the end, head on over to the Patreon page down in the video description to join the fun.